Welcome back. This is the final one, and it's delightfully intense. We unpack how unprocessed childhood patterns mess with sex, intimacy, anxiety, and even sleep. But the wild part was the claim. Minds generate like tens of thousands thoughts daily. You know that feeling when you're like, I'll process it later, and later never comes? The guest basically said later turns into anxiety, depression, and insomnia. Okay, I'm with you on patterns, but sex becoming a symbol, can we pin that down? Like when someone gets upset, it's rarely about sex, it's about my partner loves me, right? Which is brutal because love is not a subscription you can assume renews automatically. And psychologically, partner loves me and doesn't want sex feels impossible to the upset brain. So they collapse two ideas into one. Sex equals proof of being loved. That's such a nightmare logic loop, like, bro, the partner could be sick, stressed, overwhelmed. The guest framed sex as aiming at intimacy, not the literal act being the whole point. And the intimacy part is vulnerability, someone letting their guard down with you. I actually love that angle. Sex is exciting because it's relief from the usual guarded social life. But then the otherness point hit me. Partners start looking like family or siblings. Sweatpants around the house is hot. Emotionally, not sexually, apparently. It's like the spice trades places with comfort, and our brain panics. The guest basically argued love and sex sit on different ends of a spectrum. I'd push back a bit. Some couples keep that novelty forever, right? But even if novelty fades, the deeper question becomes, can intimacy evolve without turning into resentment? And the childhood connection is where it gets spicy. Freud's child knows love first. The guest's point, adult love inherits childhood love even when the contexts differ. Which is why your brain starts recreating those cozy vibes with parents when things get warm. Furniture doesn't remember you, but your nervous system does. And hotels become this weird metaphor. Curtains don't carry the emotional file history. Then they say, don't torture yourself about it, just get curious and communicate. I like that let's not torture ourselves line because couples torture themselves all the time. Humor as a mechanism, teasing turns sexual tragedy into comedy. Yes, I'm sold. Because if you can tease, you're not shattering, you're bonding. The guest described irritation turning into affectionate understanding, like lovable idiot energy. Honestly, I think that should be written on every couple's fridge. But how do you prevent boredom over years? Do you need hotel rooms forever? Their answer wasn't about novelty, it was about ceasing to listen. That sounded almost too simple, but the listening angle is actually rare. They said most people know how to speak, but nobody teaches reflective listening. Reflexive listening. You repeat back their essence with different words. The point is, they feel heard, and then they understand themselves better too. I'm picturing every relationship argument as, here's my anecdote, not here's your meaning. And parents are the champions of pretending they're listening. The kid example was savage. Kid says, I hate it here. Parent responds with, it's fun. The guest basically said, that kid needed, I hear you, everything feels disastrous, not reassurance as advice. So the successful long-term sex and romance habits start earlier than sex, humility and trying. Both people acknowledging they're fragile, slightly crazy humans, but they can attempt to understand. And then they emphasized projections. Your relationship isn't just the person in front of you. You're importing scripts from different decades like it's a backpack full of unresolved parents. Attachment theory cameo. Insecurity is often mandated by early caregiving, not earned in adulthood. I get it, but I hate when people say get on top of childhood like it's a weekend task. The Finnish metaphor was perfect. You're not becoming fluent in a week. You're learning trust over time. And they argued the goal isn't learning words, it's safe vulnerability. That leads into healing culture too, risk of turning growth into endless self-monitoring. It's exhausting when healing forever becomes its own identity trap. But the response was that we're not just trying to survive, we're trying to thrive into fulfillment at older ages too. They used the water metaphor. Clear water can still carry microscopic killers, so you have to care. Translation. Just because you feel fine doesn't mean the system isn't quietly harming you. And then Schopenhauer, turn tears into knowledge, not just tears into pillow moisture. Honestly, pillow tears are undefeated. There was also that you will never find the right person line, which sounded cynical at first. But then the critique of Right person equals bliss made sense. Rightness includes wrongness. Winnicott's good enough lover and parent. No perfect partner needed, thank God. Perfect people are terrifying. They never leave room for repair. And then, spending time apart. Does that help with sexual novelty and wonder? The answer was distance reminds you there's no preordained reason you're together. Like being ill and then suddenly seeing trees as if for the first time. Habit swallows awe, and you need skills to keep appreciating what's already there. That art tangent was actually a mic drop. Art is a record of careful looking. So the fix for long-term stagnation is, see your lover like you never laid eyes on them before. And after all that sex and intimacy talk, they shifted into mental health basically seamlessly. The mental health section was like, the mind loses order during breakdown, thoughts collide across years. Sequencing collapses, hierarchy collapses, and the worst internal voices get louder. Then the prescription was oddly simple. Another mind to help recalibrate, plus warmth and love. Love is the antidote is either cheesy or terrifyingly accurate depending on your week. And resilience, real resilience, includes humility, not stoic bouncing back. Cycles matter. Darkness is part of progress, and regression belongs to progress too. The whole vibe is sympathy plus tools, not just ideas and not just intellectual comfort. Comfort as a friend was such a gentle ending to an intense conversation. Okay, before we wrap, what's the last thought you take from this? Because I have like 5. For me, it's listening is intimacy too, and intimacy is what sex tries to represent. Mine is, stop waiting for the right person. Aim for a good enough process with curiosity and warmth. That's it for this 2-part arc. Thanks for sticking with us through the love, the therapy, and the weird metaphors. We'll see you in the next one. Go drink some water and actually listen to your people. Welcome back. This is the final one, and it stitched love, sex, and mental health together. We went from intimacy as symbol to childhood patterns quietly running the show. I keep thinking about the sex is for intimacy reframe, like, wow. Because the argument isn't sex good, it's guard down is the miracle. But then people get mad like sex refusal equals you don't love me. Which is psychologically impossible, apparently. Love plus no sex can coexist. That sentence hit me. It becomes acute only because they can't hold both ideas. So instead of interrogation, you ask, what does sex aim at for us? And the answer is intimacy, meeting a vulnerable human, not performing a transaction. Honestly, that makes foreplay sound like a philosophy class I'd actually attend. Like early spice versus later otherness, where your partner is almost family. Wait though, otherness sounds cute, but doesn't it kill chemistry for some couples? Not kill, just move the dial, because love and sex aren't the same axis. That 2 ends of a pole line, it explains why romance scripts break so hard. A romantic expects unity, but reality is trickier, and we shouldn't torture ourselves. The comedy angle was wild, teasing irritation into tender understanding. You're a lovable idiot is such a clean psychological hack, I love it. I actually do this with friends too. Humor turns threat into play. But with partners, the fear is they'll stop desiring me, right? Yeah, the boredom panic is real, especially when life gets comfortable. The fix wasn't novelty-seeking, it was cease to listen being the boring culprit. That reframed listening as intimacy, like attention is the real love language. But do people actually know how to listen without advice mode? Advice mode is default. Reflexive listening feels like diffusing a bomb. The repeat back in slightly different words thing sounds small, but it's brutal. Because most of us are narrators, not mirrors. That kid hotel story was insane. We paid a lot, don't hate it is not listening. The child basically needed, I hear your world feels disastrous. And the caregiver gave sunshine speeches like therapy by postcard. So the thesis becomes, partners need another mind to calibrate you. Especially when mental health breaks down and sequencing collapses. Thoughts don't get ordered, and then the past starts masquerading as now. That's where projections get dangerous. Your partner isn't the parent, but your brain uses them anyway. And attachment theory makes it feel less like you're broken, and more like you learned a script, which is somehow both comforting and annoying, because yes, we all did learn the script. The get on top of your childhood line is so overused, though. It's framed like a moral duty, but here it's more like paying a bill so it stops accruing interest. Exactly like you want to put the puppet master to bed, not rewatch the puppet show forever. And the language metaphor, learning trust like learning Finnish, makes pacing non-negotiable. Because I'll change my life after 3 podcasts is the Finnish fluency lie. Yet the modern world is addicted to quick rewires and instant enlightenment. That feeds the paradox, more progress but not less suffering, sometimes more self-pressure. Like happiness becomes an obligation, so pain feels like failure. And then people hide, get ashamed, and their minds start speaking in worst voice mode. The voices that don't let up description was chilling. Kind voices vanish, harsh ones dominate. That's why he keeps insisting, when mind is in trouble, what you need is another mind. Which loops back to love, but not only romantic love. Love as calibration, care, warmth. The antidote is love, but like clinical love, not Hallmark love. And resilience gets redefined too. Less stoic bounce back, more accepting desperate seasons. Regression belongs to progress, darkness belongs to seasons. Don't rage against winter. It even warns against rigid "I'm better now" beliefs that create intolerance for relapse. That's why distance helps some couples, reminds you you weren't destined, you chose. Like the tree at the park metaphor after illness, suddenly everything is vivid again. All is a skill, not a side effect, and habituation swallows joy. So the solution isn't more lemons, it's better looking. Learn to appreciate the one lemon. Now I want to stare at persimmons for an hour like it's a productivity hack. But the whole point is, long-term intimacy needs attention to perception, not just stimulation. And when we do that, sex stagnation isn't a mechanical problem, it's a perception problem. Which means couples can stay tender by practicing "see you like the first time." Okay, I'm emotionally calmer now, and that's suspiciously rare for me. Same, and I love how this series ended. Sympathy plus tools, with humor as glue. I think the last thought for me was aim for a good enough process, not the right person. And the other one was listening is intimacy, and intimacy is what sex tries to represent. That's it for this 2-part arc. Thanks for hanging with the love, the therapy, and the metaphors. We'll see you next time. Go drink some water and actually listen to your people. Welcome back. Last time we mapped expectations, today we go deeper. Minds do silent work. We kept circling the same point. Love isn't fixed by effort alone, processing matters. That unprocessed thoughts become anxiety and sleep problems line hit me hard. Like it's not even dramatic, your brain just files emotions into the background. Then background files corrupt your relationship like some silent malware. The metaphor didn't ask permission, but I loved it. Okay, but I push back. Can't people just talk it out and be fine? The answer felt like sometimes yes, but unprocessed stuff hijacks timing. Like you say something, but your nervous system hears a childhood version of it. Yeah, and then we act as if the present person owes us certainty. That's why the speaker kept going, projections, projections, projections. Projections are basically relationship fan fiction that thinks it's evidence. And the fix wasn't be perfect, it was be curious and communicate. Which is annoying because curiosity sounds like work. But it's the kind of work that stops the bleeding faster than drama. I really liked the sex framing. Sex is about intimacy, not just the act. The point was that when someone refuses sex, the panic assumes no love. But isn't it sometimes legit to feel rejected? Of course it is. Rejection hurts, but the mind jumps to "I'm not loved." The psychologically impossible part is holding both ideas, love and refusal. Our brains hate nuance when they're scared, very on-brand. Then the speaker gave that hotel room idea. Furniture doesn't remember you. I swear that metaphor is going to live rent-free in my head. It's basically history makes intimacy hard, and distance can reset perception. But I don't want to live like an escapist travel brochure either. Like, book hotels is cute advice, but what about everyday intimacy? The deeper tool was wonder. Learn to see your partner like it's the first time. That links directly to habit swallows everything up. So it's not just novelty seeking, it's skillful attention. Attention as an actual practice, not a vibe you hope for. That part about art as a method of looking, chef's kiss. Records of careful looking made me feel weirdly accountable. Like I've been speed running my own life, skipping the details. Then it zoomed out to mental health. Thoughts don't get ordered, everything collides. The no hierarchy anymore line felt painfully accurate for anxiety. Like today's problem gets dressed in last decade's emotions. And then you're arguing with yourself like it's your full-time job. The mind becomes its own worst enemy. Cool, cool, cool. I also like the bracket thoughts idea, healthy mind sequence. That made me think of how couples talk. Do they sequence or do they spiral? And listening came up as the boring superpower, reflexive listening. Because most people don't listen. They rehearse advice while nodding. Exactly, instant anecdote syndrome. The kid example was brutal. Holidays are fun is not listening to distress. I hear things are bad for you is such a rare sentence. It's basically giving the nervous system permission to exhale. Then we went into the attachment angle. Childhood patterns govern adult wiring. So the partner becomes the parent, but with worse PR. And the fix isn't therapy cosplay. It's grace while you notice the confusion. Also, the get on top of your childhood jab was funny but true. It's not a nostalgia fest, it's to put the puppet master to bed. The language metaphor, learn trust like learning a new language, felt surprisingly practical. Yeah, because I listened once isn't fluency, it's exposure. And this is where the modern paradox landed. More comfort, but more suffering. How do we reconcile progress with increased mental strain? The vibe was fewer old containers like religion plus perfection pressure. So we outsourced community, then acted surprised we're lonely internally. That ties to happiness versus suffering paradox the guest kept alluding to. And the answer wasn't cynicism, it was thrive, not just survive. I love the water metaphor. Clear liquid can still be deadly. It's like you can look fine while micro-emotions wreck your capacity to live fully. Then Schopenhauer, turn tears into knowledge, otherwise they just end up in the pillow. The pillow imagery is grossly effective. So the goal becomes learning, not eliminating pain. No perfect lover was the mic drop, though. Winnicott's good enough, applied to love and sex, made it feel more humane. Because perfection in relationships is a trap disguised as romance. And you will never find the right person was framed as gently anti-romantic rage. Right person belief creates disappointment. Mythology. The speaker's resilience definition was also key. Resilience isn't pretending nothing hurts. It's compatible with being humble, broken, and still moving with care. Which connects back to the big antidote. Love, understood broadly. Not just romantic love. Friends, therapists, warmth, calibration from another mind. Love is a mental health infrastructure, honestly. And the ending felt right. Comfort plus tools, no cold intellectualization. The "a book can be a friend" line is dangerously convincing. All right, I'm emotionally recalibrated again, like reflexive listening to my own brain. If sex is intimacy, then intimacy is attention plus safety plus humor. Also, stop blaming the present partner for old wiring. That's the whole series: sympathy, communication skills, and compassion for the mind. Thanks for hanging with us through love, sex, therapy, and a ton of metaphors. We'll see you next time. Go drink water and actually listen to your people. Welcome back, quick one. We went from love expectations to the mind's hidden baggage. Then we connected it to sex as intimacy and healing as repeatable practice, not a one-time thought. I keep coming back to that line, sex gets acute when someone can't hold two possibilities. Like, my partner might love me and might not want sex is apparently psychologically impossible. It's so wild how our brains demand certainty even in the messiest areas. But the framework is actually elegant. Sex is the symbol. Intimacy is the real mechanism. Intimacy meaning someone without their guard, not just the physical act. Still, I'm wondering, can we really create intimacy without sex, or is that cope? Because the argument was, sex is rare vulnerability, but we can get that relief other ways too. Like if my partner doesn't want sex, the move isn't to spiral, it's to ask what intimacy is asking for. Okay, babe, what are we trying to be, a couple or a tragedy? And then humor shows up again, turning a sexual challenge into comedy instead of prosecution. Teasing, affection, the tiny switch from "you're an idiot" to "you're a lovable idiot." That is basically emotional foreplay, honestly. But here's where I fought a bit. Does distance increases novelty always work, or can it become avoidance? Because sometimes absence just delays the conversation you were dodging anyway. The wonder returns like after being sick metaphor is nice, but life isn't a controlled experiment. True, but the core point still lands. Habit swallows everything, including desire. So you don't fix boredom by chasing more stimulation, you fix boredom by relearning attention. That connects to the listening thing, right? Boring relationships stop listening, apparently. Reflexive listening, repeat back the essence without advice, basically tells the nervous system, I see you. I love the kid example where the parent thinks they're comforting, but they're basically denying the disaster. We're on holiday, darling. Meanwhile, the child is like, everything is ending. That's the heartbreak. People don't want sunshine speeches. They want to be heard about the weather in their chest. And when we're heard, we regulate, so the whole intimacy conversation gets less mystical. Then the conversation zooms out to projections and attachment, childhood wiring running the operating system. Honestly, it's exhausting being told it's your childhood, but the rebuttal was sharp. It's to put it to bed. Not to romanticize pain, just to stop blaming the present person for ancient ghosts. The emotional language metaphor was my favorite part. We learn trust and safety without realizing we learned it. And then trying to change later is like learning Finnish. Except you're not learning grammar, you're learning vulnerability. But people here do the work and think it's infinite healing forever, like a content subscription. Yeah, the episode addressed that. Modern life makes you think one idea will rewire you instantly. Meanwhile, minds are stubborn organisms. You don't gulp spirituality like it's clean water. That water metaphor was brutal. Clear water can still contain organisms that wipe out cities. Translation: hidden mental contaminants don't look obvious, but they hamper fulfillment. So the goal isn't be free of pain, it's turn tears into knowledge, basically Schopenhauer energy. And knowledge isn't cold, it's learned empathy, learned kindness toward yourself. This is why the "you will never find the right person" stance hit so hard. It's not pessimism, it's cruelty prevention because right person becomes a prison. The good enough idea from Winnicott, perfect parent is dangerous, made me rethink romance standards. Because perfection means you never leave home, and everyone slowly rots in evaluation mode. So sex and love are not a single line. They're different ends of a pole, like the speaker joked. That means if sex is struggling, you don't automatically conclude the love is dead. You ask, what intimacy is missing? What safety is lacking? And what story is being imported from the past? Which brings us to the mental health part. Sleep, anxiety, the mind overclocking. The way they described mental illness was chilling. Voices get worse, bracketing collapses, thoughts collide. Like everything turns urgent at once, even things that aren't urgent, so the mind loses hierarchy. And then the only fix isn't an idea, it's another mind, calibration through connection. That half dead before we realize there's a problem line was so true to human behavior. Also the bold claim, mental unwellness stems somewhere from a deficit of love, and recovery comes through love. But love is slippery. People will weaponize it like, well, just feel love harder. Fair, but the episode framed love as warmth, friendship, therapy, an act, something practiced, not just felt. Resilience wasn't tough it out. It was accept that desperation can still have dignity and meaning. And the season's idea, regression belongs to progress, darkness belongs to cycles. That's where the modern paradox clicks. More comfort doesn't automatically teach appreciation or regulation. We got bigger toys, and somehow the nervous system kept the same old alarms. So the solution is almost suspiciously basic. Attention, listening, humor, safety, repetition. And yes, eventually you stop treating your partner like the therapist for your childhood. You just become two adults who can say, I'm projecting, and then actually communicate. If we had to compress the whole episode into one habit, be curious instead of punitive. And be kind enough to your own mind that it can stop attacking you in the dark. All right, we're wrapping this series. Thanks for hanging with us through love, sex, therapy, and a ton of metaphors. Go drink water and actually listen to your people. Like reflexive listening, not rebuttal listening. See you in the next one, and remember, comfort plus tools beats cold intellectualization every time. Welcome back. Episode 2 is the finale, and it gets very real. We went from sex getting symbolic to mental health getting worked by love, repetition, and listening. The sex part. Why does it matter so much when someone says no? Because it stops being about sex and starts being about, do you love me? And then people do this psychological magic trick. They assume love requires compliance. It's wild how many arguments are basically, please reassure my childhood. The guest was basically like, acute issue happens when you can't hold both truths. Which truths? That your partner loves you and still doesn't want sex. Yeah, like the mind treats that combination as forbidden, emotionally. But intimacy is the actual target, not the mechanical act people obsess over. And intimacy is described as someone being vulnerable with their guard down. That's why sex can feel like relief from daily limitations, not just pleasure. But the conversation went even further. Sex is not the only path to that. Hold on, are we sure people won't hear "not the only path" and get smug? Some couples will definitely weaponize it like, see, I don't need to. True. So the point is really to understand what you're craving underneath sex. The otherness idea was such a spicy twist, though. Partner becomes like family. When your partner is in sweatpants, novelty dies, and spice dies with it. And it flips the whole question. Is love and sex at different ends of a spectrum? Romanticism says they're welded together, like they came from the same factory setting. But psychologically, it's trickier. Coziness can preserve love and reduce sexual freedom. And once you hear that, you stop treating desire changes as personal betrayal. Then we got into childhood. Freud-style observation that love starts first, sex later. So, adult love inherits emotional wiring from early bonding figures. That's why hotels came up, because furniture doesn't remember your drama history. It's such a dumb metaphor that somehow becomes painfully accurate. The history knits you together emotionally but makes sexual freedom feel unsafe. And the advice wasn't fix your partner, it was be gentle with yourself. Then humor entered like a therapist in disguise, teasing as intimacy maintenance. Turn tragedy into comedy, basically downgrade irritation into affection. Lovable idiot is the whole strategy, apparently. I loved how it reframed change of tone from insult brain to compassion brain. That lovable idiot thing is self-compassion, but socially enacted in couples. Which leads into boredom, like, how do you keep desire alive for decades? People hear that and immediately think, novelty quest, new partner, new city. But the claim was harsher. Relationships get boring when people stop listening. Listening as a skill feels obvious until you try it, right? We're trained to talk, not to listen, like the world graded us on speeches. Reflexive listening. Repeat back the essence without advice or anecdotes. Basically, don't speed run into here's what you should do. The point is, the speaker must feel heard, not managed. The kid at hotel example was brutal. Parent says, don't be silly, not, I hear you. The kid wasn't asking for optimism. He was asking for recognition of, this feels disastrous. So listening is basically medicine for the shame that builds in silence. And then we zoom out to attachment and projections. Childhood stuff leaks into adult reality. Like, you might be reacting to a person who isn't even standing in front of you. Which means the fight isn't about today, it's about an old contract. The guest said Grace is noticing I'm getting confused about who is in front of me. And you have to do childhood work, but not like a nostalgia festival. It's put it to bed work, so it stops running the puppet show unconsciously. But people already feel tired. I listened to 3 podcasts, why am I not healed? Finnish language metaphor was perfect. 3 lessons doesn't make fluency. So the goal isn't magic insight, it's repetition that teaches trust and safe vulnerability. The modern world paradox was hitting too. More comfort, more suffering anyway. Progress didn't eliminate cruelty, it just made it harder to admit we're hurting. The healing culture risk, healing forever instead of living, felt real. Yet the answer was, we're past survival, now we need fulfillment, which requires attention. The water metaphor was so striking. Clear water can still contain microscopic killers. Childhood patterns are like that. May not kill you instantly, but they gum up capacity for flourishing. So, can we truly heal becomes, you keep learning so pain stops exerting hidden power. Schopenhauer energy, turn tears into knowledge, not into pillow dampness. And then, you will never find the right person got teased as romantic's doom script. Rightness includes wrongness. Like a good enough lover is imperfect but safe enough. Winnicott's good enough idea was the antidote to perfection fantasies. Then the distance question. Spend time apart to restore wonder and mystery. Like being temporarily ill and suddenly appreciating grass like a 3-year-old. Habit swallows everything. Wonder is a skill you practice, not a feeling you wait for. That's where art came in. Careful looking trains your mind to see anew. So for sex and love stagnation, see your lover as if you've never laid eyes on them. Habituation reduces joy even if life gets materially better. It's kind of annoying because you'd think money solves everything, but it doesn't. The guest even framed mental breakdown through the same lens. Minds need warmth and another mind. Like when calibration breaks, you borrow someone else's sanity until yours returns. And they said mental unwellness always stems somewhere from a deficit of love or an experience of cruelty. Not romantic-only love. Love as an act that redeems even from friends and therapists. Resilience, redefined. Not bouncing back, but understanding madness has a legitimate claim sometimes. The season's idea was sneaky. Regression belongs to progress and darkness to good cycles. That's comfort with a backbone, no toxic positivity, just learning to expect cycles. And the finale hope, real sympathy for the complexity of your mind, plus practical tools. Comfort plus tools beats cold intellectualization, and honestly, it's not even close. Okay, wrap-up time for this 2-episode run. Thank you for being here. If you take one thing, be curious, listen reflexively, tease your irritation into tenderness. And be kind to your own mind, especially when thoughts keep you awake in the dark. All right, we're done. Go drink water and actually listen to your people. See you in the next one, and remember, comfort plus repetition is therapy you can live inside. Welcome back. This is the final episode, and whew, we went deep. We connected love and sex to hidden mental work, projections, cycles, and real listening. The wild part is how often sex is really a proxy for being loved, right? Like people can't tolerate the idea that a partner loves them but still says no. And then suddenly the body becomes a battlefield for someone's internal storyline. Wait, so the threat isn't sex itself, it's intimacy as vulnerability, fully exposed. Exactly. Sex becomes this symbol that someone's guard is down and you're safe. That's such a brutal reframe. Across the relationship, fights are sometimes just fear-wearing cologne. What I liked was the instruction. Ask, what is sex aiming at? Intimacy, not mechanics. And if intimacy is the goal, you can recreate the conditions without forcing sex. This is where I start thinking, okay, hotels are basically intimacy reset buttons. Furniture doesn't remember you. That line destroyed me in the best way. But I also worry people will turn this into just by novelty, solve everything. Yeah, novelty helps, but the core issue was habituation plus stored history messing with desire. The otherness idea, partner as almost family or sibling, how does that flip the vibe? Early sex is risky spice, later love can feel cozy, and cozy can accidentally remove the edge. Then couples get disappointed and think something is broken, instead of noticing a normal shift. The fix was weirdly gentle. Tease your irritations, turn tragedy into comedy. Lovable idiot energy is such an absurdly effective relationship tool. And it ties to self-compassion. Irritation isn't proof you're doomed, it's proof you're human together. I'm still stuck on listening as the anti-boredom lubricant. Because boredom in relationships is basically everyone stops updating each other's inner world. The listening technique was reflexive listening. Repeat back essence, no advice, no anecdote. I never realized how rare being heard is. Even the parent-child example was brutal. The kid screaming, "This place smells," and the parent going, "We're on holiday," is comedy if it weren't tragic. It's like the child needed acknowledgement of distress, not a motivational poster. But okay, if someone applies all this and still feels hopeless, what then? That's where the episode widened into mental health, unprocessed thoughts, emotions, childhood patterns. The brain is just throwing your 70,000 thoughts a day, and most of them never get processed. So anger and anxiety can look like facts when they're actually dressed up feelings from earlier life. Attachment theory basically says your projections arrived before your partner even walked into the room. The most challenging part was get on top of your childhood being reframed as practical closure, not guilt. Still, I get why people resist it. Therapy can feel like forever healing content. But the counterpoint was, we're trying to thrive, not just survive, and minds need maintenance. That water metaphor was so good. Clear surface, microscopic stuff, huge consequences. Same logic with the mind. Pain might not kill you, but it quietly reduces your potential. And resilience isn't pretending nothing hurts, it's accepting cycles, even regression, as part of progress. I love that dark days belong to good seasons line. Sounds like permission without giving up effort. The book angle was also comfort with tools, warmth, sympathy, and you are not alone. Last question of the episode, what kept them awake, was basically expectation anxiety about coming here. Which honestly is the most human thing possible, your mind running scenarios in the dark. And it lands back on the theme, curiosity, listening, and kindness to your own mental noise. Okay, wrap-up time for this 2-episode run. Thank you for being here. If you take one thing, be curious, listen reflexively, tease your irritation into tenderness, and be kind to your own mind, especially when thoughts keep you awake in the dark. All right, we're done. Go drink water and actually listen to your people. See you in the next one, and remember, comfort plus repetition is therapy you can live inside.